Armory Frisbeetarians, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about how to throw what has traditionally been referred to as the hardest shot in all of disc golf. Over the next couple minutes, we'll talk about disc choices, we'll talk about some angles of release, and we'll talk about some form considerations so that you can throw the disc straight. Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about in throwing a disc straight is your disc selection. And to start this section, we're going to talk about throwing understable discs. As a general rule of thumb, a disc will stay flying straight through the air as long as it's hyzer flipping. So whatever line you put it on, as long as the disc is moving from hyzer up to flat, it will stay on that same line. This is obviously very helpful because you can just release a disc on hyzer and know that it's going to continue pushing forward until it either flips all the way over or slows down enough to hit its fade. Here I'll throw an understable mid-range on a good bit of hyzer and have it flip up and push straight for a long time before finally hitting a slight fade at the end. Stays straight all the way until the very end when it starts to slow down and then it has a gentle fade. I've got a little bit of a tailwind that's pushing right to left, so it drifted a little bit left, but overall that's a pretty straight flight. And I can manipulate that by throwing it flatter out of my hand or by throwing it harder, which I'm going to do now to have it push straight and then finish right. Go straight, and then once it hits that breakover point where it's not hyzering anymore, it starts to move right at the end of its flight instead. Throwing understable discs to hit tunnel shots is really useful because you can release a disc on hyzer and throw it hard and know that it's going to go straight for a set period of time before finally breaking left or right. If you just really need to hit a gap, taking away the thought of what angle you need to hit it on and just releasing on a hyzer and knowing the disc will stay straight as long as it's flipping up can help you hit that gap and at least get you into the next zone so you can get up and down for par or birdie. My second tip on throwing a disc straight is pretty much the inverse of what I just said. If you want to take an understable disc and put it on a hyzer, you can also take an overstable disc, put it on an anhyzer, and if you can hit this sweet spot just right, you'll have a disc that is fighting a turn and fade that more or less counter each other out, and the disc will fly straight before eventually slowing down and getting a fade at the end. This is obviously particularly helpful for a shot like this, where I want to go straight for a long way, but then know that the disc is going to finish to the right. Nice and straight, and then it hits its fade section down towards the end of its flight path and finishes predictably to the right. It's worth noting that it's trickier to find the exact balance for an overstable disc because if you put it on too much anhyzer, then it's going to really turn over to the left and you're going to get a bunch of left to right movement. Obviously, if you don't put it on enough, then it's just going to fade out early. But that being said, there are a lot of times on the course where it makes sense to throw an overstable disc on anhyzer so that it can push straight and then give you a predictable fade out at the end. Please hear me when I say that I'm not telling you that you need to go crank over on a lot of anhyzer with a really overstable disc to get something to fly straight. You can take something like this, it's a Rock 3, put it on a little bit of anhyzer, and the stability of the disc is going to want to pull it back left, but the anhyzer is going to want to keep it right, and it's going to result in a fairly straight flight down this tunnel fairway. A little bit of anhyzer out of the hand, the disc wants to come back left, and it starts to at the very end, but a very straight flight with a little bit of anhyzer on a stable disc. The next tip I have for throwing a disc straight is to do what I refer to as overpowering a stable disc. Now, similar to how you can change the speed that you put on an understable disc to make it hyzer flip slower or faster to change how long it pushes straight, you can take a stable disc and either throw it pretty soft and it will fly according to its flight numbers and get a nice early fade, or you can take something like this Pig, which has a speed rating of 3. I'm still calling it a 3. I don't care if Innova rebranded it to a 4. But if I throw the Pig at, let's say, a 7 or an 8 speed, instead of just dumping out early like it typically wants to do, because it's going faster than its intended flight numbers, it's going to push straight for a lot longer before finally hitting a little bit of a gentle fade or just landing flat. A nice straight flight. And that's why I love Pigs. Again, I can take a little bit off of that pig and it will hyzer more, but because I'm overpowering it, it wants to push straight, and then by the time it runs out of steam, it's already down closer to the ground, so it doesn't have as much room to fade. Obviously, it's easier to overpower slower discs. The slower disc you have, the easier it is to overpower it. So if you grab a stable putter and give it a nice rip, it'll fly straight. Whereas if you're trying to overpower something like a Wraith or a Destroyer, you're gonna need a pretty big arm. Now, as the disc slows down at the very end, it's going to want to fade just a touch, unless it hits a tree. You can see it's fading out just a touch at the very end as it starts to slow down, but it pushes down the fairway straight for so long because it's not getting down to that 2 or 3 required speed for it to hit the fade section of its flight path. Putters are particularly nice to throw straight shots with because they're less susceptible to nose angle issues. And if you have nose angle issues, that will cause your disc to fade out prematurely. So if you're having trouble throwing straight because all your discs are just fading too hard, you might have nose angle issues, but we'll get into that in a minute. So we've talked about disc selection, we've talked about release angle, but probably the biggest factor in throwing straight is your form. There are some simple things you can do to really help set you up to throw straight consistently. One of the common problems that I see over and over in video reviews and in my in-person coaching is that people often land with their feet in a straight line like this. The problem with this is that naturally, whenever you coil backwards, your body isn't going to let you keep the disc out away from your body. It's going to drift around behind you. And now to pull the disc straight, you're either going to throw off in this direction or you're going to have to swing around and then try to throw straight, and you're throwing in a C shape instead of just a straight line. A great way to set yourself up to throw straight is to get this front foot away from your body on your final step. That way the disc can also be away from your body and you can now pull in a straight line. I'll put a graphic up on the screen to show you this right triangle that I always emphasize for clients to get to, because if you can set up your foot and your disc in a line meeting on this triangle with your foot, you've set up a line for you to throw on, and you can literally throw with your eyes closed and know the disc is going to go straight if you're going straight from this line, down the line, and then finishing through. Man, that's an arrow. Set yourself up correctly, and it's a lot easier for the disc to stay straight. What I'm trying to get at is that it's a feeling thing. You don't have to think so much if you put yourself in a position for success. Now, like I said, the other big form consideration is nose angle. And if you have nose angle issues, well, I did an entire video about that. You can check that out here. That's all I have for you guys today. If you've gotten to this point of the video, please leave a like. I really appreciate it. Comment down below. Let me know what you want to see, and subscribe so you don't miss out on it. And I'll see y'all in the next one.